Be grateful that you are with us. You're still with us among the living. Because, you know, last night I was on my way in from Trelawney, having done an outside broadcast there. And while driving in, well after 9 o'clock, I started to see the images and the posts being made about that deadly crash, a 4-vehicle crash on the Duns River Main Road in St. Anne, just about an hour before we departed the Ocean Coral Spring Hotel to make our way home into Kingston last night. And the video, or the videos, were simply horrific. Horrific. And it stayed with me all night because just before that we were discussing how we have gone mad in this country on the roads. How so many of us are behaving recklessly in our use of the roads. Whether you are a driver or pedestrian, it's as if we have gone crazy. It's as if we no longer have any regard for the rules of the road and for our lives. And I don't know what else is going to do it. We change the law. The fines are there. The police are out there. It comes down to personal behavior. That's what it comes down to. Personal behavior. And you have some people who are driving, and no longer can we say just young men or drivers, male drivers. Some of the women are just as terrible, especially the young women. It is something that bothers me because in my how many years doing this job, how many people I've had to read about, call their names, dead, killed, unnecessarily so, in motor vehicle crashes on the roads. Unnecessarily so. And here we are again this morning. 3 killed. 4 vehicles. Sometime after 8 yesterday evening. And for the record, the dead are a 55-year-old Christopher White, a vendor, a man with a family. All of the dead people are people with families. Wives, partners, girlfriends, children, sisters, brothers, mothers, who are in grief this morning. So there are 55-year-old Christopher White, 42-year-old Kareen Browning of Thompson Pen District in St. Catherine. The third dead is yet to be identified. And when you look at the videos, one of the vehicles is crushed like a crushed paper. And that would tell you that the level of speeding. I have to travel on the roads up and down the country, and I tell you, the driving you see on the roads, it is heart-rending. So Superintendent Winchester Watson told us this morning what the police are gleaning as to what happened last night on the main road in Ocherius.
Based on information from the investigators, somewhere about 8:20 p.m., a fatal collision occurred along the Dunsborough Main Road in the vicinity of Pearly Beach. It involved 4 vehicles. A Range Rover, which was traveling from the Ocherius direction towards Miami Bay, for some reasons unknown, up to this time, failed to keep left. Hence, veered to the right of the roadway, collided with a underfit that was traveling in the opposite direction. It also had impact with a Nissan AD wagon as well as a Toyota Wish. So far, the driver of the Nissan AD wagon as well as 2 occupants are confirmed dead. Other persons were injured and are still in hospital. The investigation is still ongoing, and as soon as we have other information, we definitely will share it with the media.
Just for clarity, Superintendent Watson, we were reporting that there were 2 fatalities and that a 22-month girl was injured and is in hospital. But you just mentioned that the driver and 2 passengers in that AD wagon died. So is it that you're confirming that the 22-month-old girl has also passed?
No, I've not gotten the name of the 22-month-old, but that I was told that there are 2 other persons that are in the vehicle.
In the AD wagon.
Yes, sir.
So how many people have died?
It is what I'm getting is the driver as well as 2. So it's 3 persons from the AD wagon.
Okay, so you're not sure of who the 3rd person is yet who has passed?
No, I'm not. I'm not sure.
And any information on the passengers of the other vehicle, the drivers and passengers of the other vehicles?
You're coming in slow. I'm not hearing that clearly, but I'm yet to get additional information. I'm working on it. I'm in communication with the investigator from the St. Ann Division. But as soon as we have additional information, he'll definitely be informed.
Appreciate it, Superintendent Winchester Watson. He's from the Constabulary's Public Safety and Traffic Enforcement Branch, P-Step. So, sir, we stay on top of things with you as soon as you get the next update.
You're welcome, so not a problem.
Good. Appreciate it.
Thank you. That was Winchester Watson, the superintendent, speaking with Saeed and Ricardo this morning. Audio from the videos that have been posted by people at the scene indicate part of the story, which is the other part of the tragedy and the distress that some of the first people who were on the scene beg your pardon. Some of those who were first on the scene yesterday evening took teeth and just took them teeth from the dead and the injured. That's how depraved they are. Yeah? People lying seriously injured, some taking their last breath. You chose to steal from them. Listen to this.
Yeah, man. Range up here, so. The Ranger, man, on the top. Yeah, my boss. See the Ranger, man, on the top. I just look here tonight. Taxi tonight. Seriously, go on, brother. Seriously. Somebody take out, tell them I take out and gone.
Yeah. Take out when they want, take out and gone. That's depravity. We should be ashamed of ourselves. So we're maiming each other, we're killing each other on the roads, we break the law without any regard for law and order, and then we turn around and thief from the sick and the dying. Can we be proud of that? Absolutely not. And then the Vice Chairman of the National Road Safety Council, Lucian Jones, Dr. Lucian Jones. He's been at this for more than 20 years now, trying his best to get us to change behavior on the roads. And it sometimes looks as if it's hopeless. Here's what he said this morning about what happened on the roads over the last 72 hours.
The National Road Safety Council is deeply concerned and alarmed that despite the gains we have made as a country in respect of having a new Road Traffic Act and an improved ticketing system, some measure of public education through the media, and other important steps that have been taken to reduce road fatalities in this country. Since the beginning of April, 10 people have died on our roads. 10 in 4 days. This is a major disaster and calamity. And the options for rescuing our nation from this kind of carnage are not many. The police need to, and we call upon them, and they have been doing, they need to increase the level of enforcement on our roads. We must receive the kind of resources from both government and the private sector to carry out sustained and frequent public educational campaigns in this country. We have to make sure that whatever is left to be fixed in the ticketing system in respect of people not paying their fines at the tax office, going to court, and then getting a summons if they fail to appear in court. Whatever is left in the system to be fixed, it needs to be fixed urgently. But all of this seems to be falling on deaf ears in our country as people continue to speed and drive recklessly, which, if you examine what has happened in the last 4 days carefully, is a common theme. Yes, there are issues in terms of fixing the roads, but the common theme is that people are not staying in their lane, they are driving recklessly, and they are speeding. We need to ramp up the breathalyzer program in this country. For many countries, a lot of those crashes, fatalities, are caused by people driving under the influence of alcohol. Based on the data, this appears not to be the case in Jamaica. But we don't see any reason why Jamaica should be peculiar and different from the rest of the world. So we need to examine the breathalyzer program much more carefully. These are challenging times, and the entire nation must be mobilized from top to bottom to put an end to this. This madness cannot continue. We cannot continue to lose lives, precious lives like this. And therefore, we are appealing for urgent action to stem the tide of this kind of blood littering our streets and causing grief and pain for families and for the entire nation.
Dr. Lucian Jones, Vice Chairman of the National Road Safety Council, one of those laboring for decades on this matter of road safety in Jamaica. So the business of education has been focus of attention at the 60th anniversary education conference of the Jamaica Teachers Association at the Ocean Coral Spring in Trelawney for the last couple of days. And yesterday, a a former chairman, noted of the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, noted educator, author, thought leader, anything you want, former senator. Errol Miller wears many hats. And yesterday he was the lecturer at the conference. And it was quite a lecture. And this morning I'm going to share with you, if you weren't up last night listening. The first thing that was most newsworthy were his comments, assessment of the recent passing of law subsuming the office of the political ombudsman into the Electoral Commission of Jamaica. Professor Miller said it was the worst electoral decision made in Jamaica since independence. Yes, you heard me, and you'll hear him say it. The worst electoral decision since independence. Listen to him.
Just prior to the local government elections, Parliament passed an amendment to the Electoral Commission Interim Act of 2006 that subsumed the functions of the political ombudsman into the election commission and made every electoral commissioner ombudsman or ombudswoman. This is by far the worst legislation affecting electoral laws passed by the Jamaican Parliament since becoming a nation in 1962. It has no equal.
Wow. It has no equal. He apologized for using the lecture to raise what he described as a contentious political issue. But he went on to characterize that decision as a dishonor to all who worked towards political independence, including the nation's teachers. Yes? The Electoral Commission was formed in 2006, and it replaced the Electoral Advisory Committee. Professor Miller was the first chairman of the Electoral Commission. And according to Professor Miller, the amendment passed in the House drags the ECJ commissioners into direct involvement with partisan politics.
Adjudicating complaints of intemperate speech, silly public behavior, disputes about color, posters, paraphernalia, and graffiti in a period of heightened political partisan bravado and emotions in election campaigning, and without any sanctions to apply to deviance, is likely to diminish respect for both the Electoral Commission and its commissioners. In the past, the political ombudsman, while doing some good, was ignored by some candidates and their agents who defied their rulings, disregarded agreements reached, violated codes of conduct, all without consequence. To bring such impunity into the Electoral Commission is grossly unwise.
Grossly unwise. And he wasn't finished. He said it's hard to see the benefit to the Jamaican people of making the commissioners referees in the tribal game of party politics.
Making the electoral commissioners a collective I call the Ombuds Massive, 4 of whom can be removed at any time by the Prime Minister, is an innovation with little precedent and very high risk, despite good intentions by all. You know, we lionize change, but change must be for the better, not for the worse. The 4 selected commissioners could easily be compromised in their role in the constituted authority and also performing the role of political ombudsman.
The professor says, given the new arrangement, the Electoral Commission of Jamaica commissioners are in a position where it's easy for them to bring the organization into disrepute during the election season.
You see, the constituted authority, and you might not know much about this body, but the constituted authority comes into being the day following the announcement of an election. And it remains in force for 6 months. Now, should a political event occur, especially before nomination day and up to election day, selected commissioners would be embroiled. I'm not going to call it conflict of interest, but conflict of office. No less than if a cabinet minister is found to be involved in open violence and social disturbance. The two things by law are not supposed to happen.
Professor Errol Miller. And his comments are sobering. Sobering. This from a man whose public service and commitment to Jamaica is unquestionably, genuine. And as I listened to him last night, I thought about the debate over that piece of legislation and the decision. And I really hope he's wrong. I do hope he's wrong for the sake of Jamaica. He also used the lecture last evening to teach. He pointed out some of the historic achievements of Jamaicans in education, not only here in Jamaica, but across the world. And it was important that he did that, because at times we question ourselves, we doubt ourselves. We're not sufficiently imbued with our history of achievement. Here's what he said.
Jamaica as a colony and the Caribbean as nations have been on the global frontier when it comes to primary or elementary and secondary education. You say, how you mean we haven't been on a global frontier? Let me give you, and some people have heard me, so I'm repeating it. The first black graduate of Cambridge University, Francis Williams, went to school in Spanish Town, because at that time only Spanish Town and Port Royal had schools. Went to school in Spanish Town, saw to be a bright young guy, and the professor of physics of Cambridge wondered if black people had the same intellect as white people, as Europeans, and the only way he could do it as a scientist was to do it by an experiment. He did it by an experiment of one. And he paid for Francis Williams to go to England to a grammar school. And when he was successful at the grammar school, he paid for him to go to Cambridge University, and he graduated. Listen to this date, 1721. 1721, 303 years ago. What am I saying here? I'm saying that one of the things that is true of our teachers from then is that we teach to a standard. When you're getting good teaching here, quality education, which is the only thing Jamaicans and Caribbean people have ever been interested in, we teach to a quality that matches the best in the world. And our students continue to live here and do well. And it happens continually. We can export expertise. Not when they come, not that we don't exchange with our colleagues, but when we exchange, we do so as equals.
Spot on, Professor Errol Miller. Did you know that? The first black graduate of Cambridge University, one of the best universities in the world and one of the oldest, the first black graduate was a son of the enslaved people of Jamaica from Spanish Town. Spanish Town. The first black graduate of Cambridge. Huh? A Jamaican boy, the son of the enslaved. Professor Miller, during the lecture last evening, yeah, and by the way, this is the kind of thing I would love to see the JTA do more of. Yes? Let us take on issues that are more than just about remuneration and fringe benefits. This is vintage JTA at its best. Not some of the rabble-rousing we have had to endure from some of its recent leaders. The professor last night went on to point to some key points in the history of Jamaica. Points that have helped to shape what we have as an education sector today and the Jamaican society by extension.
What is it that mobilized the state to provide education as it should? It was universal adult suffrage in 1944. Anybody who writes the history of our country and don't start out with a major change, you're talking about we being at a cusp of change. This was cusp of real change. When the people mobilized the state to provide education as it ought. And the first time it took 18 years before they could transfer the power from the directors of public education, of British officials who were directors, to the elected representative of the people. It took 18 years. And the first time that the voice of the people mandated to do educational reform took place was in 1957 with the common entrance, free place, building of primary schools then, first time. Understand this. There's a point in our history that I think we continually overlook and ought to be celebrated. And since the ministry and the JT is on such good terms now, remember this date. Remember this date that should be celebrated. It's 1953. 1953 was when ministers were first established. Ministerial government came into being, and the Ministry of Education was one of the first ministries established. And let me tell you something here. It is at that point that we begin to look at the fundamental changing around of the state. It should be a date that the ministry celebrates. 9 years. Now, that's one set of lessons. I come to lesson 1957 to 1978 were halcyon years. Let me put it in the nicest. Halcyon years in the transformation of Jamaican education. And notice I'm not talking PNP and JLP, because we had different governments. I'm saying these were halcyon years. Major changes took place. This period exceeded every other period in Jamaican history by far. The only thing that comes close to it is education in Jamaica between 1866 and 1896. And you know what caused that? It's a little riot called the Morant Bay Riot. No, it wasn't a rebellion. It was a riot. It was a riot in a little country town that had worldwide consequences. Okay? Be careful how you dismiss St. Thomas. Now, populism combined with geopolitics related to oil and bauxite pushed the Jamaican economy into increasing debt that led to a devaluation that I think only few in this room might remember what it was, because you weren't born yet. It was called the crawling peg devaluation. This is the beginning of major devaluations in the Jamaican dollar. In 1979, $1, because our dollar was, before that it was stronger than the US dollar, $1 became $1.78. Now, the debt problem became big. The IMF came in. Now I'm using Bank of Jamaica data. The debt to GDP ratio reached its highest point ever, 214% in 1984. I happen to say this, that I became involved very seriously in a number of public things which I don't want to go in personally during this period here. It was a very hard period. And this was when the JTA came to the fore in a number of ways. When funds became unavailable to fund education, JTA went to the government and said, let us impose an education tax. He said, oh, people are against taxation. We will take the blame for it. We proposed it and took the blame for it. And I was in the Senate when the education tax was discussed. And when it became clear that it was not going toward education, but it was going into the consolidated fund to pay debt, I raised the divide and asked that every member who was voting for that, their names be recorded in Hansard, because the day will come when they or their children will know what a mistake it was to do that.
Professor Errol Miller. And you can go online, yes, the nationwide 90 FM YouTube channel, and you can hear the full presentation, all of the lecture last night. For those of us who are interested, yes, in learning as much as possible about our history, and not only colonial history, but post-independent history. Yeah, you may not agree with everything he says, but certainly you'll learn a lot. Yeah, I see some people appreciating that on the YouTube channel. Others can't, because they're trapped in ignorance. Yes? And their own political prisons. Also, yesterday evening, the principal of Moneague College, Howard Isaacs, who's also a former JTA president, he spoke to me last night. And he was telling me about the changes they've been making at Moneague in St. Anne. Moneague was essentially a teacher training college. Started in the 1956. And it was started by Peter Phillips' father. Yeah? And the principal, Mr. Isaacs, was telling me that they have now evolved into a multidisciplinary institution. They retain their core business of training teachers, but they have gone beyond that now. And one of the things he told me that I thought I would share with you this morning, he says more needs to be done to cure a worrying trend he's seeing among students at the tertiary level. They're disengaged. They're not prepared to go beyond what is required of them to get the certification. Listen to what he said.
One of the things that has had me sitting up at night looking in the ceiling, Cliff, is how can I engage my students? What can we do different? Because since COVID, things have changed. And that's a concern I have. I've been in the system from 1986 as a trained teacher, still in my teenage years, 19 years old. And I've never seen students so disengaged. And that's a challenge that I am having now, to find strategies and ways in which I can use to get my students to be more engaged.
That is Howard Isaacs, yes? He says today's students are only concerned with passing exams and graduating, as opposed to participating in extracurricular activities. Listen.
We try our utmost to offer scholarships to students, right? So, for example, the cohort that is doing our computer electronics program there, they came in on a full scholarship. We found funding from somewhere else to provide scholarship for them. And one of the things that I recognize is that sometimes their involvement in activities outside of the curriculum the co-curricular activity that makes them what you and I are. Sometimes I get the view that they are not as involved as I'd want them to be.
They just want to do enough to get the certificate.
Get the certificate.
Oh dear.
And that's a concern I see right across the colleges. So we have to find some strategies, some mechanism to get them a bit more involved where they can see learning experience more than just the academic.
Howard Isaacs, the principal of the Manig College. And surely it's a challenge that we are having in our education system for some time now. I was speaking this morning with a teacher who said, yes, they've been picking it up. It's not like the former days when you go to college and you're not only going there to be certified and to be, to get the degree, but you're also going for the experience where you take on other things. Not so. There's another matter this morning it's almost time to shut up. But the clerk to the Houses of Parliament, Valerie Curtis, made it official yesterday that come Saturday, April 6, she will retire. She will retire having reached the retirement age. And according to a statement from the Parliament, Miss Curtis had her time extended about 2-3 years ago for 2 years. And she's now beyond the retirement age. Yes? And yesterday, she told the people of Jamaica, that she was going in a statement dubbed Farewell. And I'm going to read it for you because she sent me thinking. And I wonder if she sent you thinking. Those of us who, are curious. The clerk to the Houses of Parliament is retiring come Saturday, April 6. And she said farewell yesterday to parliamentarians and the people of Jamaica. And she sent those of us who are, curious, checking. I want you to read what she said for me, Nora, and then I'll tell you what I found.
All right, the subject of the memo is farewell, and it reads, the Persian poet Omar Khayyam once declared, the moving finger writes, and having writ moves on. Having gained employment at the Houses of Parliament 28 years and 6 months ago, I will retire as clerk to the Houses of Parliament as at Saturday, April 6, 2024. I have had a plethora of experiences during this time, and the best of them will remain with me forever as treasured memories outweighing those easily forgotten. You are part of that treasure. It is my hope that I have also impacted the life of others. As I move to the next phase of the life that the Lord has blessed me with, I go with having known that I have fulfilled my purpose at the Parliament. I thank you for allowing me to do as by your influence and input in the work I have done. Should you wish to send a personal reply, you may do so at vacbonvoyage@gmail.com.
Valerie Curtis, the clerk to the Houses of Parliament. Read at the beginning again where she quotes that Persian poet.
The Persian poet Omar Khayyam once declared, the moving finger writes, and having writ, moves on.
She didn't complete the quotation. It is completed with, nor all thy piety nor wit shall lure it back to cancel half a line, nor all thy tears wash out a word of it. Omar Khayyam. One interpretation of that, I'm advised, is that the moving finger is a symbol relating to fate or time. Once the moment is past, then it's gone. The incident is done, recorded, and cannot be changed. Now, you can interpret that however you want, given the recent events. But what I'm being told, yes, is the moving finger is a symbol relating to fate or time. Once the moment is past, then it's gone. The incident is done, recorded, and cannot be changed. Now, who is this Omar Khayyam? He was a Persian polymath known for his contribution to mathematics, astronomy, philosophy, and poetry. He was born in Nishapur, the initial capital of the Seljuk Empire. He lived during the rule of the Seljuk dynasty and around the time of the First Crusade. As a mathematician, he is most notable for his work on the classification and solution of cubic equations, where he provided geometric solutions by the intersection of conics. Khayyam also contributed to the understanding of the parallel axiom. As an astronomer, he calculated the duration of the solar year with remarkable precision and accuracy, and designed the Jalili calendar, a solar calendar with a very precise 33-year intercalculation cycle, which provided the basis for the Persian calendar, which is still in use after nearly a millennium. You know, when you come here, you learn. I thought I'd share that with you this morning. Thank you, Miss Nora.
You're welcome.
Good.